Hey guys, I know this topic's kind of old, but I actually haven't seen anybody do one on guitar effects, and I thought it'd be a good one to talk about, maybe just to see what we agree or disagree on. So let's get started, and I'm just gonna start off with some of the easier ones, just to get those out of the way. So in the S tier, we're gonna have overdrive, distortion, and fuzz. I mean, because let's be honest, everybody's using these pedals. Now, I'm not much of a fan of fuzz. If I had to do just a tier on those, I would go overdrive, distortion, and then fuzz. But if we're looking at, all of the guitar community and what they enjoy, these got to be S tier. I mean, you just probably wouldn't start a board without one of these, I believe. And then let's also go with one of the F tier ones. I'm gonna go with the Acoustic Simulator. It should be no surprise that this pedal's down here. I mean, it's pretty much useless. I don't think it sounds like an acoustic. Also, whenever I've needed to use an acoustic, I just brought an acoustic. Where it might come in handy, people would probably just prefer you to use an acoustic anyways, whether that's for optics or just, producing the best sound as possible. I don't think, these things just don't sound that great. So that's got to be F tier. All right, let's go some more. Let's look at boost. That was a hard one. So boost, I'm going to give boost a B tier. This might ruffle some feathers on that one. The reason why I'm going to give boost a B tier is because boost starts with B. No, well, I'm giving it a B tier too because I don't think you see them on a lot of boards. Boost is usually nowadays, you get them with dual overdrive pedals. They'll have a boost side and then they'll have the overdrive section. Nowadays, you don't really see the boost by itself. And a lot of people use overdrive distortion type pedals as boost pedals. So it's just a hard one to kind of, push any higher. It's definitely useful for like solo lines, to get over the band. If you're using it as a kind of EQ thing, it can be very useful. But I don't see it on a lot of boards, so I'm going to put it as a B. All right. Let's go with delay. I was going back and forth whether I was going to put this as an A tier or S tier. Because it's hard. I mean, and just because I don't want to have everything in the S tier and for the next pick, which is the reason why I'm going to put this at A tier, is because of the next pick. So I'm going to put delay at A tier. And I know you're probably thinking why it was not S tier. The reason why I got to give it A tier is because of reverb. The way reverb is used nowadays is kind of overtaking the delay's worth. Now, people still use delay, don't get me wrong. But I feel like, what you hear in a lot of music nowadays is that reverb. Delays have kind of taken more of a backseat kind of approach. When back in the day, delay would have been, one of the things you heard immediately in the track. Reverb is one of the things you definitely probably going to have on your board or an effect you just have in general, even if it's on your amp. You're always going to have reverb in some capacity. I think you can get by with a reverb pedal nowadays more than you can with the delay because your reverb can cover the ground of a delay pedal. Unless you're using like, your edge style delays or you're doing some of that old school 80s stuff, but it's still in the A tier. I don't know. Should I put it in the S tier? Yeah, let's go ahead and put it in S tier. Because, I was trying to talk myself out of it, but delay is just too important. Let's continue on. All right, chorus. Chorus. I'm going to give chorus a B tier. I can see right now that it's going to be hard on a lot of these to figure out where to go if it's not S or F. But I'm giving chorus a B tier. I use chorus. Now, chorus is one of my most favorite effects outside of overdrive and delay and reverb. Chorus is coming next for me. Reason why I'm going to give chorus higher is because I think you can get by with the chorus over some of these other effects that we'll get into. It could pretty much cover the ground, or at least like hide the fact that, you know, maybe that you're not using that pedal, but it still kind of sounds similar. So that's why I got to give the edge on chorus, even though, you know, chorus isn't used as much as it was in the past. You know, it could just cover a lot of ground for playing a lot of those styles of music. So that's why I got to give it a B tier. Let's go to some more divisive ones. How about why? Why? I'm going to give it a D. This might be surprising as well. And the reason why I got to give wah a D is because you just don't hear it as much. It's a fun pedal. You just don't hear it as much nowadays. I mean, it's almost a one-trick pony. I mean, I use wah, but I can, if I'm playing like, you know, 40 songs, I'm probably using it on one or two. Wow, I'm using overdrive and delay and reverb a lot more, right? And then the fact that it's got to take up space. I mean, you look at these boards nowadays, I don't see why used as much. A lot of it's just expression pedals and volume pedals maybe, but I don't see why as much. So that's why it's going to be pushed down here. If you're a Kirk Hammett fan, maybe you're going to disagree, but or if you play funk or something, you know, you may disagree with that. But it's not often that you're going to be using that pedal, so it gets the D tier. Let's do compressor. Now, compressor is an effect that I use a lot, but I'm going to have to give it an F. Compressor, give it an F. And the reason why I give it an F is because, again, like, why you don't see it on a lot of boards. If you're playing humbuckers, if you're playing a loud amp, it's not all necessary to have a compressor, just because you kind of get a lot of that back. And also I got to give comp an F tier because it's one of those effects you don't really know what it does if you're not like into like the lingo of compressors, like ratio, threshold, and attack, you know, all these different things. Like it's not user friendly for a beginner or something. Again, like, I feel like if it was, like, I got the Dynacop right here. I feel like if it was the Dynacop, it could probably go a little higher because when they use these, you wanted to hear the effect. But nowadays, that since you don't want to hear the compression, almost, you just kind of want this clean thing. It loses the idea of it being an effect in some ways, right? I mean, obviously we want it to just sustain, but it's just one of those pedals that's very decisive on the fact of whether or not whether it's working or not. It's like psychosomatic. So it's got to be F on that one. All right. Let's do another one. Let's go with Tremolo. I'm going to give Tremolo a C tier. Tremolo is one of those pedals that are not necessary, but are very fun to use and add a little bit of texture to your playing. If you're playing in a 3-piece or something like that, Tremolo comes in handy a lot. You know, if you're playing in a bigger band, sometimes Tremolo can get lost in the mix outside of the volume drop you may experience. It's just one of those pedals that kind of add a layer to your sound, but it's not necessary. It's just something you can use, right? So it's C. I'm putting a C, like neither satisfied or dissatisfied with it, right? It's just something you could have. Let's go with Vibrato. Vibrato, I gotta give F2. If I gotta give compressor F, I gotta give vibrato F. And that's just because it's also just one of those pedals that is not needed, but I also don't think it adds that much more to your sound. It kind of blends in with some of that other stuff. It's just not a good effect on its own unless it's kind of like more dramatic. But then again, I don't use vibrato a lot, so maybe it's just me. I don't know. All right, let's go to Rotary. Rotary, I'm going to give it a D as well. And the reason I'm giving it a D is because the reason I gave the Y a D. It's kind of a one-trick pony kind of thing. You can get by on chorus, as I mentioned earlier with chorus. It's just not many songs that you're going to have to use it on. So you have to find a reason to use it, but it's not as useful as Tremolo. right? So I can't push it up more than that. Let's go to Univibe. Univibe, I'm giving it an F tier. I'm gonna catch a lot of flack for this. I'm giving Univibe an F tier too, because it blends in with some of the other sounds in here. The only person I know I could think of that uses that, or that type of music you can use it for, is that psychedelic Jimi Hendrix kind of stuff. Outside of that, you don't hear it often. You just don't. So it's got to go down there. Then we have last two. Phase. Oof, this is difficult. I'm gonna put Phase at C tier. That's because of Eddie Van Halen. And on top of that, if you know how to use Phase, if you know how to use a phaser, it can be very useful if you know how to use it, right? But again, you can get away with chorus, which is why chorus is ranked a lot higher. I might push chorus to A tier just because I don't have anything up there. But yeah, it's just very useful. Chorus is just that useful that it covers the ground of some of these other pedals. But yeah, without Eddie Van Halen, without that, that 80s style sound, it will be a lot lower than this. But since it's kind of useful in that regard, I'm pushing it up. All right, and then we have Flanger, our last one down here. And Flanger's got to get a D tier. I want to give it an F tier, but I'm going to give it a D tier just because it is a pedal that's useful. It's not as bad as, Acoustic Simulator, Univibe, and Comp, and all these other ones. So I'm going to give it a D tier because it does have its own flavor to it, but it's definitely not needed. And it's one of those pedals, again, like some of these other ones that are lower, they have to be very dramatic in order to feel it. Otherwise, it ends up sounding like a chorus, So Flanger's got to get low. Now, upon looking at this, I actually realized I forgot graphic EQ. So if I had to put graphic EQ on here, I would put graphic EQ at a C tier just because it could be very useful as a shaper of your tone, especially as a boost or anything like that. I'm putting it at C because it can take a lot to learn how to get used to. So, yeah. All right, so that's pretty much it. Man, we didn't even get anything in the A tier. So I may put... Yeah, you saw that I had delay down here in A tier. So delay is pretty much between A and S tier. But yeah, that's it. Let me know if I missed anything, by the way, just by doing this list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think, disagree with, or agree with. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.